The Massachusetts Democratic primary also happens on Super Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, and that is obviously Senator Elizabeth Warren's home state. She's the senator from, I should say, one of the two senators from Massachusetts, and it is not looking very good for her right now in her home state. 538 has 50% chance that Bernie wins the Massachusetts primary, compared to Elizabeth Warren has a 21% chance. It's also a 51% chance that Bernie Sanders wins the most delegates in Massachusetts. There's only 22% chance that Elizabeth Warren does. There's also a recent poll, I think it came out earlier today, from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, I believe, that showed Bernie Sanders with a 1-point lead in the Massachusetts primary currently over Elizabeth Warren at 20, Buttigieg at 15, Biden at 14. So, I mean, it's going to be a pretty bad look for Elizabeth Warren when, and I say when, not if, because I think all the momentum is pointing in the right direction for Bernie Sanders. He's going to win Nevada. He's going to win, I think, in South Carolina as well, or at least come in a very close second to Joe Biden there. And then he's just going to clean up in the Super Tuesday states, maybe losing one or two, if that. And here, Elizabeth Warren, just poor showing after poor showing, didn't do very well in Iowa, didn't do well in New Hampshire, is going to do even worse in Nevada and South Carolina. And then when it comes to Super Tuesday, she's not going to even win her home state. She's not going to win any states. I just looked at 538. It's less than a 1% chance that she will win the nomination. Out of all the candidates, Bernie Sanders still has the best shot, about 2 and 5 or 38% chance. So this is Massachusetts, and then I just want to show you how amazingly well Bernie is doing in the polls in his home state of Vermont. So Bernie Sanders in Vermont, this poll, VPR Vermont PBS poll, came out in February. Bernie Sanders, 51% of the support in his home state of Vermont. And in a very, very distant second, Pete Buttigieg at 13. So what is that? Over basically, 38% higher. Bernie Sanders has 38% more support than the second place Pete Buttigieg in his home state of Vermont, and Elizabeth Warren could only manage about 9% in that particular Vermont poll. So again, but it's so unfortunate because I had some decent hopes Elizabeth Warren when she got into this race, that her and Bernie Sanders would be able to kind of tag team as a progressive duo and really go after the neoliberal, centrist, and corporatist candidates like Buttigieg, like Biden, like Klobuchar, and obviously now like Michael Bloomberg. But it just seems that every opportunity that Elizabeth Warren gets recently, she's throwing shade at her supposed friend, Bernie Sanders. Just the other day she had an interview on MSNBC with Lawrence O'Donnell where she was basically saying that she's gotten a lot of stuff done in the Senate, and she doesn't want to become president to yell at people, just saying that Bernie Sanders, obviously a huge straw man, Bernie Sanders wants to become president to make the United States work and to benefit the working people and not the billionaire owner class. And then we have her previously stabbing him in the back, accusing him being of a sexist and a misogynist. Then her flip-flop of Medicare for All, which really kind of started her downward trend in the polls, because people were able to see that she wasn't really going to stand up and fight for Medicare for All like Bernie Sanders. And for Democratic voters and just voters in general, healthcare is super important. I think that's one of the reasons that Bernie Sanders keeps rising in the polls, is because people see him as trustworthy and consistent on the things and policies that he supports, and that these overwhelmingly benefit the working people of the United States. And again, he has the most diverse, broad-based working class coalition of any candidate, and that's what we need. And we need a candidate who's going to excite voters, get a lot of young voters and first-time voters to get out to the polls to beat Donald Trump, and he's the only candidate who brings that type of excitement to the race. And it's just obviously one of the reasons that any other candidate, I think, is going to not fare so well against Donald Trump. And again, the polls reflect that. Poll after poll shows that Bernie Sanders is the only Democratic candidate to beat Donald Trump. All of the other ones lose. So the whole, electability argument, how is Bernie going to fare in the swing states and all that nonsense. Bernie Sanders is the only candidate in poll after poll, and even going back to, 2016, that showed was capable of beating Donald Trump. But again, the establishment forces within the Democratic Party and the DNC, they would rather have a second term of Trump than Bernie Sanders, who's going to overturn the apple cart and make sure we have a government and political system that benefits the working people and not the billionaire owner class. And Elizabeth Warren, if she was again really concerned about getting a progressive elected and beating Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders has shown time and time again he's the only candidate capable of doing that. So it's more of a vanity thing, or she's just pissed off that Bernie has this huge, diverse working class coalition and grassroots support behind him, that she doesn't have that she's wanting to sabotage or torpedo Bernie Sanders' chances of getting the nominee. And again, she was on the debate stage, Wednesday night, saying that she's okay with the superdelegates overturning the will of the people. She just flip-flopped and now is okay with taking super PAC money. And I think a big reason that she did that is that her campaign was just basically about to go bankrupt. They didn't have a whole lot of money on hand, so she had to make that pivot in order to get some more campaign, funding going her way in order to stay relevant in the race. And again, look, she didn't do very well in Iowa. She did even worse in New Hampshire. She's going to do even worse in Nevada, and then even worse below that is how she's going to perform in South Carolina. So again, it's super disappointing, but it seems like she'd rather have a contested broker convention where the corrupt super delegates, these 500 DNC political hacks who would do everything that they can to make sure Bernie's not the nominee. She's okay with that, and it's just really sad and disappointing. But all of this shady, corrupt stuff that the political establishment and these establishment candidates are trying to throw at Bernie Sanders, none of it's sticking. People see through it. People see that he's the real deal. He's going to fight for things like Medicare for all, so we don't have 68,000+ people dying each year. We'll save $450 billion, cancel student loan debt, make free college, end the wars, living wage. All of these things are hugely popular, among the voters, and Bernie Sanders is the only one who's going to fight to make them a reality. So Bernie, again, he's surging. He's going to beat Elizabeth Warren in New Hampshire, and I hope she, takes a long look in the mirror after that happens and like, wow, is this really the road I want to be on? Do I want to go to a brokered convention and let the will of the super delegates overturn democracy, the will of the voters? I hope she does that, but I'm not holding my breath. That's why we need to act like Bernie Sanders is 20 points down in all of these races, because the more support he has, the more difficult it's going to be for the DNC and this whole corrupt superdelegate system to steal the nomination from him. So just some thoughts I would love to hear is in the comment sections down below. Peace. Much love. Bernie 2020, not me, yes.